All right, let's do it. Ready, Len? He's always ready. Welcome everyone to the Reconnect to Self podcast. My name is Scott. I am a filmmaker and I'm here with my wife, Tracey, who is a counsellor. And together we run the Reconnect to Self retreats here in Perth, which is in Western Australia. Now, today's episode is one that I know is dear to your heart. You're very familiar with this topic. We've talked about it a lot over the years. Yes. Love languages. Where shall we start? Oh, actually, I should say, how are you? Even though I already know, but that's fine. How are you?
I'm very well,
for the listeners and the viewers.
Yes, I've got Lenny with me all snuggled up. He was waiting for me to test all the different camera angles and kept jumping on my lap.
Yeah, for those watching on YouTube, we have switched places this week to change it up a little bit. See how we go with the angles.
I didn't like my angles.
You look good. You look good. I didn't want to say that, but that's okay. All right, so my very first question, I guess, is do you want to start by defining what love language is, what it means?
Yes. So the way I describe it is a love language is just the way that we like to give and receive care from people in our lives. So that could be from our romantic relationships, kids, family members, friends, even work colleagues. We do lots of little gestures and lots of little things for them just to show that we appreciate them, that we are thinking of them, that they're important to us. These are all the little things that we're doing to show that care.
So why do you think they're important?
Because they're kind of the glue of a relationship. Like people often think that, all those big moments that are special in a relationship, like, going for an overnight stay in a hotel or a big bunch of flowers from the florist or things like that are, so romantic and so lovely. But because they don't happen very often, they're not the things that keep the relationship together. It's actually all of those little gestures and all those little actions that we do constantly throughout our day, throughout our week, that is actually what keeps us close and connected in our relationships. Okay,
so I know this because you told me yesterday, but there are 5 different categories.
Yeah. So there's thousands of examples of love languages, but I'd say that they fall into 5 different categories. Now, there is a person that has written a book about love languages. Now, I've never read this book. It's a concept that's been around for a very, very long time, but the person that has written a book, he uses different words necessarily than what Tina and I talk about on the relationship retreats or that I talk about in my sessions with clients. Yep. But actually the concept of love languages for me personally came about a very, very long time ago when I used to work at an agency working with teenagers. I had this young person who was living with her grandmother. She didn't have any parents. Were both deceased. And the grandmother wasn't a very warm, affectionate person, but she said to me that if she did gardening with her nan, if she went out in the garden with her and did some gardening, she said she was always nicer to her that day. And so she sort of figured out herself that was her nan's love language, that her doing something that wasn't really appealing to her, like gardening for a teenager, that if she did that, then the nan was happy with her and that she would kind of get treated a bit nicer that day because she was in a good books kind of thing. And funny, as I'm saying that, I'm remembering that my dad, if we got up really early and went to swap meet, and again, as a teenager, who wants to get up at like 6 a.m. in the winter and whatever, but if you did, you were kind of like the favourite child of the day. Like you would get hot chips for breakfast because you're allowed to eat hot chips in the winter when you're at the swap meet, and that's what the food vans are. But he would also just kind of be nice to you the whole day, and then whoever slept in and therefore was deemed like lazy, they wouldn't get the good treatment that day. So if we got up and went to swap meet and Dad had company, we were in good stead for the day.
Do you know what I'm thinking? Is anyone who doesn't live in Australia who's listening to this, I wonder what their concept of swap meat is.
What would that call? Okay, so
they're probably thinking it's some sort of like bring your butcher meat down, your steaks and whatever. You need to explain.
A flea market, would it be that? I don't know if that's the right thing.
Yeah,
where people go and sell their stuff out the boots of their cars and trailers and things like that.
Literally out the boot of their car. Yeah. I went to a couple when I moved to Australia, and it was not enlightening. It was a culture shock. I was like, what the hell is this? But people love it.
They do love it. I mean, he used to love it. So.
All right, we're getting sidetracked. So talk me through these 5 different types of love languages.
So one way to think about it is often in the beginning of a relationship, like of a romantic relationship that is, we are often doing all of these 5 in loads of different ways. So one is time. So obviously when we first started dating, you and I, we spent as much time as we possibly could together. Perhaps we even didn't schedule plans with other people because we were trying to carve out that time for ourselves. So we would have just dedicated loads of time together. So basically in a relationship, it's any of that intentional, purposeful time together. So, if you're in your relationship and you're going, oh yeah, we watch TV together, unless it's kind of going, oh, let's put on our show and deliberately, intentionally sitting on the couch and watching that together and talking about it afterwards, then that's not necessarily intentional time. So the first one is just that intentional time. And again, think about kids. If you've got kids and you're trying to be pretending that you're intentional with them and you're plonked on the couch watching a show, no, that's not the same. They want you talking the whole way through, or I'm going to be doing handstands and you're watching me while we're doing this. They want that quality intentional time, not just we're in the same room at the same time.
Okay. And forgive me if you've said this already, but love languages, because you've just used an example of kids, you've used the example of your dad, it's anybody, right? It's not just a romantic relationship.
Yeah, any relationship that we have that we care about, we're doing these behaviours and actions just to show that person that we care for them.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing I noticed, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but all of the 5 different types begin with a T.
Yes.
So it's easy to remember.
Yes.
All right.
That was deliberate. And the person that's written the book, he will have different words.
Okay.
So I can't remember what they are because we don't talk about them.
Well, we'll call ours the 5 Ts.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 1 is time.
Yep.
What's number 2?
Touch. So touch can be anything from holding hands, if this is a romantic relationship that is, holding hands right through to kissing and intimacy. But if it's with family members, it's, it's cuddles, it's tickles, it's snuggles, it's, any of those affectionate things that we do. But basically with touch, it's anything that's kind of tactile. And when we're thinking about love languages, it's also getting really clear on what kind of touch we like. So some people, they might like their feet touched, or some people hate their feet touched. Like there's certain things that...
I love a foot massage.
You do, but some people don't like that at all. They wouldn't like their feet being touched. Or there just might be certain parts of their body that don't want to be touched, or certain times that they might not want to be touched. So getting really clear on some of these things, even if you're knowing what category you might be liking, some of that care to come from, just getting really clear on the nuances.
So when we're talking about getting really clear, okay, so when you're working with your clients, do you encourage them to have these conversations? That's the whole point, right? Yeah. You have to get clear on, because touch is on the list, if that doesn't work for you, like you don't like being slapped on the bum or your hair rustled or whatever it is, then that's more annoying than it is.
Yeah, and that's why love languages have to land, or they could A, not be noticed, or B, they could actually make someone feel not very seen.
Right.
So I'll give you examples of that in a moment. Actually, I'll go into it now. So the next category would be tokens. So this is sometimes where that can trip up. So for example, tokens is just little gifts or gestures that I would say are under $20. So they're not very expensive. It's the coffee, it's the chocolate bar, it's the supermarket bunch of flowers. It's things that kind of just say, I was thinking about you while we were out. So they're not really expensive things. It's not the night at Crown. It's not the big florist bunch of flowers. It's just little gestures. So in the past, when people have, say, perhaps gotten their partner a box of chocolates and they're not the partner's favourite box of chocolates, then that person can feel a bit like, they don't even know me.
I would never do anything like that. Do you know, because flowers would be in this bracket, right?
Yeah, flowers
All
are
right,
in here.
we may as well talk about this. There have been times when I've been going to get you flowers because I've done something that I want to make up for. And I've been at the florist thinking, I have no idea what flowers you like. Mm-hmm. And there's been a couple of times where somewhere in my consciousness, lilies have come up. They're the big white ones, right?
Yeah, and I don't love them.
I don't know where that came from. And so that is probably a little word of warning for anyone around love languages and you're doing this. That especially if you're trying to apologise, getting flowers or whatever, getting the wrong type of thing, flowers, chocolates, whatever it is, can almost do more harm than good, because I imagine the self-talk that you would have had when I popped some lilies on the table.
He doesn't pay attention. Yes. He doesn't know what I like. Now, let me just explain about lilies, because I also had this conversation with a client the other day, and she brought it up and I agreed with her. But it's because you've got to cut off those little orange bits that fall on the table and stain, and they can have a smell to them, and so they just become more of a pain in the ass than enjoyable.
We may as well continue this, because there's a little, I guess, a point to make here is then you had to be very clear that flowers were off the table, pardon the pun, but no more flowers.
Yeah, okay, let me just be clarifying with that. So with love languages, they can evolve and change over time. So for me, when we were first together, and if you were to ever give me flowers, I don't know if you really did, but I would have been open to them. But when we had kids, the thought of finding a vase and then having to find the right size vase, fill it up, get it all nice in the table, and then very quickly petals start dropping and then you've got to change the water. Like, it just became another chore. So as much as they were really pretty, it just became another task. So for a while there, we said, no more flowers. And then so Amelia's 8 now, so maybe it was about 3 years ago. And I remember saying to one of the kids, we were at the shops, and I said, if you're at the shops with Dad, maybe you could suggest that Daddy gets us mummy flowers, when you're here. And then I ended up telling you about it, and you said, what do you mean? You don't want flowers, you don't like flowers. And I said, no, I'm back. I'm ready for flowers again. And then I think it didn't take you that long before you finally got me some flowers once I'd made that statement. And the very first time I had to find that vase again, I then changed it and said, can we get them in boxes from now on? So now that's the new rule.
And I'm fine with that, because I have a very clear direction. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm looking for when I go in. Because there's been a couple of times I've bought like colourful flowers.
Ugly flowers.
Well, I would describe them as colourful. Rainbow.
Yeah. Ones that are fake, like they've dyed them. They did.
Okay. Well, I got them from the Vietnamese place over there. That's their whole thing. But anyway, I get it. Rainbow flowers are off. Since you've given me that
feedback
is pretty clear instruction, it kind of does work, because I come home with a box of flowers, and that sounds weird, but literally flowers in a box, and you love them.
Yes. And then what chocolates do I get? What is the only chocolates that you can get me?
After dinner mints. What are they called?
They're called after eights now, because they're English, but that's the only brand.
Yes. And if I get the wrong brand, because Woolworths do not sell after eights. No. Woolworths sell Whittaker's. Is it Whittaker's?
We don't get Whittaker's.
No. Learn that the hard way also.
So get clear. That's my tip. Get clear on what it is that's going to land.
And that always works. After eights always works.
Always land.
Farmer Jack's, for anyone in Australia, Farmer Jack's sell them. So if I'm in Farmer Jack's, I will usually grab a box and even for no reason, and that lands.
It lands, always.
And that serves me well.
That's right. So the tip for that one is, if you've got different preferences for chocolate bars, you don't think your partner knows what ice cream you like, or, I know I'm sounding like it's all about snack foods, but sometimes...
Well, actually not so much anymore, which we'll talk about in another episode, but anyway, go.
Yeah, so it's just more, that's probably the easiest things people grab. It could be socks, it could be jocks, it could be, anything that's kind of under that $20 mark. But for me, it could be a crystal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Crystals are big for you.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got enough crystals now.
We probably do have enough crystals now.
But as you were building your collection...
That would have landed.
Yes, that absolutely would have landed.
Yes.
Socks would land with me, actually, because when you said that, I was like, why would anyone use socks and jocks as love language? But now that I think about it, socks would be good.
I'll pop it on your list.
All right. Should we move on to the next one?
Yes. Time. No, we've done time. Talking.
Yeah.
So talking would just be kind of that deeper conversation. So again, think about when we got together. We used to stay up really late, talking all night. We would have these really beautiful, deep conversations where we just, didn't feel tired because we were just enjoying the connection so much. And in fact, we used to always call it nighttime Scott and Tracey. And then we used to say that morning Scott and Tracey were going to be furious with us.
We were staying up ridiculously late.
Yeah, it'd be like one in the morning, which for us is very late, by the way. Like we're early to bed people. Even back then, I think we probably were maybe 10 or 11.
Yeah. We would and then we would have to wait, because that's when we worked for other people. We would have to get up early and go to work and furious.
Cursing ourselves from the night before. So talking is not just, those deeper conversations, but it's also positive feedback. So it's also, saying nice things, compliments, that kind of stuff. Actually, this one's a big one for us because what's my favourite thing I say to you?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot. Favourite thing
Well,
you
not
say
favourite,
to
but
me?
what's the thing I always say to you?
Oh, tell me something nice.
Yes. So for anybody that is like me, that has a partner that thinks lovely things, but doesn't quite get it out of his mouth, we've discovered that if I just say to you, tell me something nice, you'll usually be able to come up with something pretty quickly, like it doesn't take you very long, that's usually very sweet, thoughtful. You've noticed something. You're not just going,
I love you.
Yeah, you're not just telling me I'm sweet or like it's not just a random nothing compliment. It's usually something that's, quite considered. So that always lands for me because you do think about it, in that moment.
I do try and mix it up as well and do different types of compliments.
Yeah, so that
might
is
be about being a good mum or looking beautiful or whatever. Like I'll mix up the feedback.
And definitely you can say that about my cooking lately because
Absolutely.
it's definitely improved over the years.
I mean, we were at a low baseline, but
It's true.
You have delivered some restaurant quality meals of late. Well, not even of late, in the last 12 months. Okay, what else about talking?
And then the last one, so talking's finished, no?
Well, I'm just thinking, because I think that it's a big one in terms of, because talking is so broad, like what can we narrow down, like does it have to be like a deep and meaningful conversation, or it can be not a throwaway comment, a meaningful comment like you were just talking about, like tell me something nice?
Yeah, that's the positive feedback.
So it's all about whatever that means to the person.
Yeah, and how that looks. So it could be you're giving me positive feedback about these sort of things. It could be we're just sitting and having a nice conversation that's interesting. It's not just the same kind of stuff we always talk about.
Yeah, okay.
Because also I always, talk about how we always come from our habits. And that includes our conversations. We're often thinking the same things, so we talk about the same things, we behave in the same ways. So all of it's recycled. Yeah. So just by having different kinds of conversations, then that can be a nice way of adding connection. On our relationship retreats, we give people conversation starter cards to have different kinds of conversations. So that's always nice to mix things up and to get to know each other in different ways. Because, like what we were saying at the beginning, that, we were talking about everything in our lives and about our histories and whatever, but then you don't think to have those conversations again. You kind of feel like you know each other, but your perspectives and your opinions and your views on things, they change dramatically over the years.
Yeah.
Even you think about the conversations you would have had in your 20s compared to someone talking about going to Bunnings now in their 40s. Like they're very different conversations or interests.
I don't know if this is relevant, but we used to have a thing about quiet time in the car. Do you remember? Is that relevant here? Or how?
Well, you liked quiet time. I didn't like quiet time.
That's why I sort of wanted to dig a little deeper on the talking topic, because I'm not naturally a talker. And surprise for anyone watching and listening, you're a talker.
I'm a chatty Cathy.
Yeah. So, a good way to explain that is, if at a night out or a networking event or whatever, we've always described it as you are energized by conversations and talking with people. Mm. And I'm quite introverted, and so am, if I had to go to an event where I'm talking to lots of people, or just a night out where I'm talking to lots of people, particularly if alcohol's not involved, I find that really, really draining. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that used to happen is if we went out and then we were driving home in the car,
you'd say nothing.
I wouldn't speak.
Oh, it's terrible.
Because I was exhausted.
It's like the opposite to a love language.
Yeah, but that's kind of why I'm bringing it up is, and maybe it's not to do with love languages, but it's just to do with understanding your partner.
Yeah.
Is, because even on not our first date, our second date, where that was nearly a deal breaker. Remember, we drove from one location to another location.
Yeah, I thought this is too soon for silence.
Whereas in my head, I was like, oh, this is so nice. Straight away, we're comfortable just being silent.
I was like, what's with this guy?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that's to do with love languages, but whatever.
Last one's tasks.
Okay, go.
So tasks is anything above and beyond what you already expect from that person. And so an example of that is sometimes I'll have clients say, you know, when I come home from work, straight away I'll go and bath the kids. And then I'll look at the wife and I'll say, and what are you doing? And she's like, I'm doing the dinner. And I'm like, okay, so you're not really seeing that as being a love language, that he's coming in and straight away doing something with the kids. So one of the really important points around tasks is we need to know what we are expecting of our partner already. We've done previous episodes about expectations, so maybe getting really clear on what those expectations are with that division of labour. And then you can also then look at, well, what would feel nice for me that you're doing as a task? Because for some people, if they have a partner that's a really tidy, clean freak person, and then that person touches their desk, that might not seem like a love language because you've moved all my stuff and I don't know where anything is. Or you've put things in drawers and I don't know where it is. So that might not be seen as a love language because that's not helpful for me.
Yeah.
So it would have to be something that you did appreciate. If you felt like that person wasn't doing it to a good standard, that might not be helpful. Someone went and washed your car and you thought they did a poor job, that might not land.
Yes.
So with all of the love languages, the tip that I give my clients is to have a think about what would really land for you personally. What are all the things perhaps that were done in the past when you first got together that you really liked? And what are the things that you would really like now to be done? And get really, really clear on that. So if it is coming from tasks, you can absolutely be clear on what would the things that you would like being done that would land. So for me personally, anytime that you take the kids anywhere, like sporting wise, if you say, I'll take Ali to training or I'll do this, whatever, oh, I love that. So anything kids sport related, especially if we've got a task for that week, if I'm having to be on scoring or umpiring. I'm not doing the goal umpiring. No. That's a good love language you can do for me. Yeah. So that would be one around tasks. Or even just recently you've started turning down the bed for me. Yes. So that's actually a good point on that particular one is sometimes when our partner might be doing a new love language that either we've asked for or maybe they're trying out and we don't notice, then absolutely point it out because this was only a couple of months ago I said to you something about, turning my bed down for me to get straight into bed because there's pillows and there's blankets and all sorts of things. You've got to... that you've got to get off the bed before.
It's like that movie, there's a movie, Along Came Polly, I think, with Ben Stiller.
I don't have that many pillows. No, not like
a lot of
that.
Pillows.
Not like that. Okay. All right. But anyway, that was a love language that I added only recently. And then one time I jumped into bed and you looked at me and you said, did you notice I turned the bed down for you? And I didn't. And it's because we have an 8-year-old that gets in our bed sometimes and I'm not always aware if the bed's not being disturbed. But by you pointing that out, I was then able to recognise that you did do that and then give you that feedback and have that nice feeling. But if you just had have thought, oh, she didn't even notice, A, that would have made you feel not very nice. And B, I wouldn't have got that nice feeling that you were trying something different, that you were being sweet in that moment. So absolutely point out if you're doing that. And even with kids, like with my son, because he's nearly 15 and he totally can make his own food if he chose to, on a weekend, if he's like, Mum, can you make me lunch, Mum? And he's doing that whingy, naggy thing about food. If I ever make him, something nice for lunch, I'll always hand it to him and say, you know what this is? He's, I know, it's your love language. He'll do it in a silly tone, but he knows what it is. So I like that they know what that is because I want them to know that don't expect that from me. That's not my requirement as a mum to be making you lunch when you're nearly 15 and it's a Saturday. Yes. But I will do that to show you my love and my care as long as it's appreciated. Yeah. So that's an example of, with kids that you can still do these different things and it's going to change and evolve. So looking at our kids, the things that they might have loved when they were really little, will definitely be different compared to now. So the foods that they would like or the treats that they would like or the kinds of things that they would have liked even. So with little kids, they want your time. They absolutely want to be in your presence. They want to be having positive feedback. Maybe when they're little, they like cuddles. But as they get older, that might change and they might not like that anymore.
Not you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Tommy used to do that. Oh, gosh. I should probably explain what that is. When Tommy was probably like a toddler, I would say, he used to fall over or get hurt or whatever and would start crying and we would go over to him or maybe I would go over to him, and he would literally put his hand out and go, "Not you."
That still makes me laugh. Because he was about 3 when he was doing this.
Yeah. And did he want you or did he want no one?
No, he wanted me.
Oh, but there was times when he wanted no one.
Yeah, he was,
independent.
My brother used to call him Dexter.
Yeah,
because he didn't like being cuddled if he hurt himself.
Yeah, he thought there was something wrong with him.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So I want to give people practical advice. They're listening to this, they're going, okay, this makes sense. What do you do? How do you get it happening in your life?
Well, first of all, start with yourself and go, what is it that I think my partner is doing for me? Have a think about that and see if there's things that you can notice. And then think about, well, what are the things I'm actually doing for my partner? And get clear on that. Because you could be doing lots of lovely things for your partner, but they might not be knowing about it because it might not be the things that land for them. So one point about love languages is we tend to do the love languages for other people that either we enjoy the most or come naturally to us. So someone that's really affectionate, that's easy for them to go and give their partner a cuddle or say, I love you and things. But if that's not someone's normal way of behaving in a relationship, that might be really difficult for them to think to go and do those things or...
Lenny needs the toilet. All right, hang on. Lenny.
So you want to actually check in with what are you doing for your partner and is that landing? So there might be lovely things that you're doing for your partner that don't actually land. I had a client once where the wife was making the husband's lunches every day and really putting a lot of effort in making slices, putting lovely fillings in the rolls or the sandwiches, and she wasn't really feeling appreciated. So he would kind of grab his lunch off the bench and kind of be like, cheers, and, go off in his day. And then he wasn't coming home and giving feedback about how delicious the slice was or the sandwich fillings or anything. So she wasn't feeling appreciated. And once we checked into that, he was feeling like I can't remember if it was she was trying to save money, like he felt like she was trying to save money or trying to maybe watch his diet a little bit. Like even though she put some treats in there compared to what he maybe would get at the tuck shop, was different. So he was interpreting it quite differently than what she was intending it to be. But the reason why it actually wasn't landing was he worked in an office and he didn't want to sit in the office and eat his lunch. He wanted to go somewhere outside of the office with friends and colleagues and, be able to just change his environment, and he didn't feel like he could bring his lunchbox to the cafe. So for him, he didn't really know that was a love language and certainly wasn't appreciating it. So once they recognised that wasn't landing, then they could have that discussion around it and change it and tweak it and make it be, something different that was going to make him feel like he was being cared about.
Yeah.
I had another client once where when we were going through her love languages, she said that she lent her partner her car. And I said, but he drives you to the train station. Do you think he knows that that's a love language, you lending the car? Anyway, so she checked it out with him and she came back and told me, she goes, no, he thought that because he was taking me to the train station, that was like a fair trade, which was what I thought, which is why I wanted to check her out, her to check that out with him, because she was thinking she was being really sweet. And yeah, she was, but he wasn't necessarily taking it in that same way.
Well, that's probably a nice segue, because one of the questions I wanted to ask, which I think we've sort of been talking about anyways, is how can you get this wrong? Like, how can you get love languages wrong? And so the example you just gave reminds me of when we were younger and we had just gotten together because we were in the old house, and I was the one who would have to go to work early, and I can't remember what the time was.
It was early.
But yeah, it might have been 6 a.m. or 6:30 or something. That was back when we were staying up later and we're not getting up so early. And so my alarm would go off and then I would roll over and sort of snuggle you for maybe up to 10 minutes. Just because I thought, affection, it's nice, you might like that. Yeah. And then I would have a shower and go about my business and head off for the day. And I thought it was a lovely thing to do. And I wasn't doing it for me. Mm-hmm. I wasn't getting a lot out of that 10-minute cuddle.
So we discovered this by me complaining one day.
Yes.
I said to you something about you're not very affectionate. And you said, what do you mean? I give you a cuddle every morning. And that's how that came about.
Oh, okay. I forgot how.
That you said, I'm always giving you a cuddle in the morning, da-da-da. And I'm like, but that's not for me. You said, yes, it is. giving you a cuddle so that you know that, you're cared about and da-da-da. Yeah. And I was like, oh, don't do that for me. That's very early. Like, because you were waking me up. Like, I would be fast asleep. Then you've just latched onto me and cuddled me, which sounds sweet, but in theory, not in practice. In practice, you've just woken me up. Yeah. And then now I'm sitting here being cuddled for 10 minutes, hoping you're going to get up soon so I can go back to sleep. And so once we realised that you thought you were doing it for me, yes. I thought I was enduring it / receiving it from you. We worked out that it wasn't actually serving either of us. No. And then we started cuddling before going to sleep, and that was much nicer.
Yes. Yeah.
But if we hadn't have talked about that, we could still be cuddling in the mornings, although you would be the one that's getting woken up.
At 4 a.m. now. Yeah.
Let's give that a try.
So I guess the key learning there is just communication.
Yeah, you've got to talk about it, because the things that you think that you're doing for your partner, they may not actually be appreciating or recognising. And even with the slightest tweak, then, you could have that land differently. Yeah. Do you want to tell everyone where the vanilla slice needs to come from if you're going to get me a vanilla slice?
Miss Maud's.
Miss Maud's.
Yes.
Can you get a vanilla slice from anywhere else?
No, and I've tried. Because that's up there with the after dinner mints. Is Tracey loves a vanilla slice? Not so much anymore, but back in the day, I think I once got one from like a beautiful pastry shop. I thought it was great.
Like custard.
And you were not having a bar of that.
So now we just have the simple rule. Like, I'm sure there's loads of lovely ones out there, but to try and explain to you what it would need to look like and come across, there's no point.
Yeah.
So then
I haven't done that one in a while. I don't know if that would land anymore. Would that one still land?
If you got it from Miss Maud's, yes.
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right.
Yeah.
What else do people need to know? I'm just going to check my notes.
So these are the things that, one of the concepts we talk about in the relationship retreat is a concept called positive sentiment override. And it means that we're having 5 nice interactions in our relationship versus one that doesn't go so well. So love languages are absolutely ways that we can get that ratio right up by doing these lovely things for our partner. And to be honest, when I've looked at people's lists, because I often get people to write down minimum of 10 things. They're thinking about what they would really like. They're being specific. If they're wanting, affection, for example, they're getting really clear on when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And what I mean by that is sometimes people have come back into the office, after I've given them this homework, and I've said, oh, how's it all gone? And the wife will usually roll her eyes if she's said something about affection, and she'll say, well, he thinks affection is groping my boobs when I'm cooking dinner. And they'll both have a chuckle, and she'll kind of just roll her eyes. Yeah. And that's not landed then, because he's made a joke about it, or he's just done the kind of affection that he wants to do, and that's not felt really nurturing or caring, for her. So she would need to be really clear on, I like it when you sit close to me on the couch. I like it when you put your hand on my leg when we're driving. You grab my hand when we're at a party. Like, whatever it is. Yeah. Actually, one person said once, I like it when my partner puts his hand on the small of my back when we're at a bar. It was so specific. Yeah. But it was so lovely because it made me think, oh, it's just quite subtle and discreet, and, she just wants to feel that security of him right there behind her. But it was just such a nice...
Yeah, that's a good one. So, again, I'm trying to make it practical advice for everyone. Is it something you would set aside a bit of time for, or is it better to do it and go, right, here's my list of 10 things? Or is it nicer to just incidentally start communicating as and when it feels appropriate?
No, I think you need to set yourself up. I think you need the list because then that's in your possession and then you can be a bit more spontaneous with what you're wanting to do. And that's the other reason why we have to have a minimum of 10, because say you wrote 3 things down. Yep. Your partner did one yesterday, one today, one tomorrow. Like, what are you going to do? Keep doing the same things? You can't. How many boxes of afternoon mints can you give me? So it's got to be that there's lots of variety to choose from, because then that's more natural.
Yes.
And literally, some of the things that people have put on their lists are: you close the bathroom door when you're having a shower. You take my cup to the sink when you're taking yours. For me, it would be wiping that bench down if it was a task one. Like, they're simple things. They're nothing. Yeah. They're nothing crazy. Don't get me wrong. I know that tasks can be, depending on what the person's asked for, pretty annoying. But some of the things that I'm asking for of you, like tell me something nice. What is that? 10 seconds of your time? Like, it's not a big deal. Like, these things on your list, you could do all of them really in a week.
Yeah. making a cup of tea. There's lots of little
there's heaps of things.
Simple little things. Yeah.
And again, think back to when you first got together. What were the things your partner did for you back then? Because normally in the beginning of a relationship, we are doing all of those love languages, so everything feels amazing. That's why we have that honeymoon period and we feel really connected and really close. It's because those behaviours are there. And so then when real life kind of kicks back in and, you know, we can't maintain the 2 a.m. going to bed and all the other things that we do when we're trying to connect with our partner, and it kind of gets back into our routines again, if some of these things fall away, and it might be the ones that were your favourites and the things that really landed well for you, then you're not going to feel as close and connected. Even if there is still love languages there, it just might be the love languages that your partner chooses to do because it's easier for them or it's more natural for them. But they can absolutely do the ones that would land better for you, and then you feel more connected. Yeah. And then if you feel like your partner's done something lovely for you, you're more likely to want to do something lovely. So it's that kind of, you know, reciprocation that we get going on.
So at the beginning of the episode, we sort of mentioned that it's relevant for all your relationships, your kids, your parents, I guess siblings, friends would be a big one.
Yeah. But even work colleagues, you think about people that bake a cake and put it in the lunchroom, or, you know, bring in things to share. I remember going away on holidays and bringing back treats from a different country and putting them in the staff room for other people. Like, that was my way of showing care for people and sharing my experience.
But how, because a lot of the other parts of our conversation today have been around communication and making sure that your partner understands what your love languages are. It would be weird walking into the office and saying, hey everybody, these are my love languages. So when the relationship is not as intimate as, you know, a romantic relationship, how do you navigate that kind of...
Well, I guess you're probably then just doing the things that you would like to do. Yeah. Like, it's your choice to bring in the stuff to the lunchroom. It's not requirement. And so it's going to land with whoever it lands with.
But what about, say, your parents?
Well, that would be tuning into them a little bit. So the same way that my client knew that her nana loved the gardening and I knew that my dad liked me going to swap meet, you might tune into Dad loves it when I come and visit on a Sunday. Yeah. You know, Dad loves it when I bring him a treat. Dad loves it when I... So it's kind of paying
attention to how does it land, does it not land?
Listening for the feedback.
Is it a pain in the ass for you and it's not really making a difference?
Yeah, that's a good one, because if you're doing all this effort for somebody thinking that that's so caring and so thoughtful, and for them they're not that bothered, then we don't want to do that. We don't want to put our energy there. We want to put it where it's going to land. Yeah.
And kids? Like, so have you ever spoken to our kids, or it's just something they've picked up?
I do speak to them about love languages.
What do you say?
I tell them what it is. Yeah. I tell them this is my way of showing care for you and I don't have to do this. In fact, last night I told Tommy, because he was annoying and he didn't do something that I asked him to do, which I thought was disrespectful, and I told him that. I said, normally I would tweak your dinner, because obviously in our house we have 5 different versions of dinner because everyone's so ridiculous with their food preferences. And so I said to him I wasn't going to tweak his dinner. And he got, actually I did tweak. He got chicken instead of salmon because he doesn't like salmon. Yep. But the rest of it was the same as everyone else. Yeah, right. But normally I would have tweaked the whole thing as a love language. So I told him I was withdrawing that love language.
And that is a big one with him.
Food.
Food lands with him. Mm-hmm. Like, if I do him gnocchi, he's over the moon. Mm-hmm. Like, you have a few different dishes that he loves.
Yeah.
Anytime garlic bread's on the plate, that's a win.
Actually, we always joke, and this is a love language for him, that I'll put his dinner in front of him and say, if you were in a cafe, how much would you pay for this? We have a little banter about how much he'd be willing to pay for it because it's so delicious. Yes. But that's my love language for him, and he knows it.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, I want him to know that, so that he knows he feels cared about. It's not just like a so she should, you know, doing the mum duties. No, I want him to know that that's an extra.
Yeah. Yeah, you're pretty good with that. I think in terms of parenting, like, you will do all the things, but you make sure that they acknowledge it or they notice it. It's not you doing it because that's your job.
Yeah, I want to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing with love languages. We do want that feedback. We do want to feel like that landed and that felt nice for that person, because that gives us that nice feeling as well. Like the same way that I said, it was good that you pointed out I didn't notice you turning the bed down, because once I did notice, I got that nice feeling and you got the nice feeling of being appreciated. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So all of these things are adding to the connection in the relationship. So the fact that Tommy knows he's loved and cared about because we're making him gnocchi or, you know, whatever dinners, like, I want that to stand out for them. Yeah. And same with, with friends and things, and making sure that, the things that we're doing for them. Like I have a friend, I'll name you Rachel. She's named it a few episodes now. So I know that Rachel loves words of affirmation. And so when she gives you a birthday card, or even just randomly, and you got one for your birthday on a voice message, and she says the most beautiful things, she goes into such detail, and she's just so thoughtful. And I know when she gives us one of those kind of cards or messages, and I always think, I know she would appreciate this in return.
But you don't do it.
I think I have a couple of times, but again, it's one of those ones where that's not a natural.
Yeah.
My friends are lucky if they get a card. I tell them, you are a really good friend if you don't get a card, because otherwise I'm just being polite by giving you a card.
I thought you were going to say the opposite.
No, I tell them you're so good that I don't need to pretend.
Shout out to anyone who's received a card from you lately. That's funny. Okay, that's good. Should we do a quick recap before we finish up? So do you want to go through the 5 T's?
Yep. So the 5 T's are tasks. So that's anything above and beyond what you expect from your partner, and getting clear on what that looks like with those, tasks that person might do for you. So for me, it would be take the kids to some sort of sporting event, or picking them up. Anything involving nighttime. There's touch. That's getting really clear on what kind of physical touch that you would like, what would land for you, and being as detailed as possible about that. So that could be different versions of, what that touch looks like. There is tokens, so getting clear on, again, what your preferences are and what would land. Under $20, really simple. And checking in with your partner, what would be those things that they would really appreciate. Another tip about that could be paying attention to what stage of life they're at. I had a client once where her husband bought her a box of chocolates, and she was on a health kick, and she was furious. she said, he's not paying attention. I'm not eating that sort of stuff at the moment. Why would he buy that for me? Yeah. And she said if he had gotten her blueberries, then that would have landed much nicer than the chocolates, because she could have put that in a yogurt in the morning or something. So she just felt like he wasn't paying attention to where she was at currently at that stage in her life. So that didn't land. He also got her Ferrero Rochers, which didn't land, because she said, when has he ever seen me eating Ferrero Rochers?
That is a big one. As guys, we just assume... I
don't know why you go for that one.
That women love Ferrero Rochers, because I've done that in the past. 100% I know I have.
Yeah.
Because you see them on the supermarket shelf and you're like, oh, they look fancy, that'd be good. Doesn't land.
Did that land?
No.
Didn't land.
No.
So getting really clear on what it would be that you would appreciate. There is talking, so setting aside time, if that was your partner's love language or your love language, to have those deeper or more interesting conversations. You could use prompts for that. You can, if you've been on one of our retreats, you could use the conversation starters, but you can also get prompts and journal prompts and things from Pinterest that can be good conversation starters. We've been places where we've had random conversations in the lobby of a hotel trying to mix it up.
Yeah. And our kids, did we mention before, our kids love the conversation starters?
Oh, we haven't said that, no.
That was a big one for them. Probably not so much anymore.
No, they do. If we go to Dome, they'll always grab the conversation starters at the back of the menu.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So they like having different kinds of conversations. Yeah. And in fact, funnily, they have evolved, because previously we would bring, card games with us if we went to cafes. Yeah. And then now they'll roll their eyes at that and they'll be like, no, can't we just do conversation starters? And they actually say the words conversation starters.
They do. So I know it sounds obvious for anyone, that's just a pack of cards that have questions. And the question might be something totally random, like if you could visit another planet, what planet would it be? And it's all around just trying to have conversations that you probably haven't had before.
They just mix it up. I remember being in the lobby of the hotel one, and we talked about what would be the movie star we would have play us if we had a movie made of our life. Yeah. And then we spent ages trying to think of who that person would be.
Yours is the lady off The Good Wife, isn't it?
I think it might have been. I think maybe that's because people tell me that I look like her, but they also tell Tina. So the two of us always get told we look similar, so we get the same lookalikes. Celebrity lookalikes.
I got a bad one. Mine was George off MasterChef, which
I
just thought was brutal.
You did not say that.
Somebody said that to me. It wasn't me. I didn't come up with it.
I'd say the guy off Entourage, which is what we eat.
Yeah, he's my least favourite character, but I guess he's famous. I'll take it.
Okay, so we've gone sidetracked, but that's just mixing up conversations. Yep. And then, what was the last one?
we've done talking, we've done time. I'm pretty sure you've done tokens. So I think you did touch, did you?
Yeah.
And then tasks.
Well, task was anything
Tasks
above
we've
and
done.
beyond. Yeah.
So we've done them.
Okay.
Talking, time, touch, tasks, tokens.
Yep.
Remember that.
Yep. And so it's getting really clear on them, getting your list of minimum of 10. If you can go, to 20, if you can go even more than that, then do it. I would always say that we've got to tweak and change if our partner's done something that hasn't quite landed. Sometimes I've had people that have come in and their partner's saying something about orange cake, and I'll look at the wife and I'll be like, do you like that orange cake? And she's like, oh, I did back, 15 years ago, and he still buys it for me. Yeah. And people are often worried about hurting people's feelings. I mean, not in this household.
Oh, thick skin in this household.
We tweak, but that's fine, because we would rather tweak it in a gentle way. Maybe not in that moment say, that doesn't land that shit, but maybe just show the appreciation and then say, my preference would be whatever.
That's probably a good point, because obviously we've had some fun talking about the many times that I've done ones that don't land. If it doesn't land, how do you deliver that in a nice way?
I think maybe always acknowledge the bits that did land. So that was really sweet that you were thinking of me. You went out of your way for that. Yeah. You know that I like chocolate. Like you can give all the prompts of what you like, but then you could say, oh, maybe next time, I love the blah 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 a bit more than that one, or that's my new favourite. You could sort of preface it like that you're still appreciating what's
and effort.
Yeah, and that thought and that care that was there in the first place, yes. But just that tweak so it's going to land better and you have that nicer reaction. Yeah. So updating your love languages, they do change and evolve. Like the things that I would have appreciated when the kids were little, like you coming home early, would be very different now than when they're more independent and those tasks aren't so heavy on us. So just checking in with yourself about what you would prefer now, thinking back to even your childhood. What did your parents do for you when you were younger? As love languages. Yeah. So the reason I tweak all my meals for my kids is because that's what was done for me. I think being the youngest, if I didn't want to eat what everyone else was eating, my parents would always tweak that, which is why I have this.
Now look what you've created.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah. But I reckon that's come from my love languages that my parents showed me.
Okay. So next time you're complaining about it, what happens? Just have to remember that. Because you talk about it a lot.
Which bit?
About having to cook 5 different meals for everyone in the house.
Yeah.
But it's a love language.
It is a love language.
The tweaking of the conundrum. What a conundrum you've created for yourself.
Oh.
All right. I think we did a pretty good job of summing that up.
Mm-hmm. So just remember, love languages are for all relationships, not just romantic ones. And have the conversations with your kids. Let them know when you're doing love languages for them. Check in that it's landing for them. Know when you're doing a love language for them versus you. I know if I'm cuddling my kids, that's usually for me. That's not necessarily for them at this age.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well done. Good job.
Good job.
Okay. If you happen to like this episode and you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. I won't mention this every single time, but if you're listening and you're like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, it would be amazing if you could write a review. You don't have to, it would just help us out. If you want to follow Tracey, so I think we should do a newsletter about love languages. I don't know if we've done one yet about that topic, so we can do a newsletter about that. If you want to join our newsletter, we send it out every 2 weeks, and you can do that by just hopping on the website, which is traceyquayle.com. If you want to follow Tracey on social media, which is Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, the handle is @traceyquayle.therapy. And if you happen to be on LinkedIn and you want to follow Tracey on LinkedIn, not that you post a whole amount on LinkedIn, but if you are, it's just Tracey Quayle. That is it. In an upcoming episode, we might cover holistic health. And the other thing I would love is if you have ideas of what you want to have talked about in an episode. If you have suggestions on what you would like to hear us chat about, let us know. Jump on the website and shoot us an email. Okay.
Thank you to everyone that's been messaging me or telling me in sessions about the changes you've been making based on listening to our podcast. People have given me some feedback around my story about my car and my self-talk being kind, and a few people have told me that they've actually changed their self-talk off the back of that story and remembered it in real time. So that was really lovely to hear of that impact that story made. So thank you for giving me the feedback, and I would love to hear more.
Beautiful. All right. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.